Do you think there should
Own
be
your own health.
warning labels on obesogenic foods, on junk foods?
100%. Right now, one of our big initiatives with my nonprofit Food Fix is front of package labeling with the FDA. So we've been fighting and pushing for a long time, and we now have gotten them, and Robert Califf is actually open to this, to create food labels. And the reason we're able to be doing this is that almost every other country has done this. Like, I just came back from a trip to South America, and when you go to Chile and there's these big black stop signs, about sugar and salt or whatever. Like, you could argue about what should be bad or good, but basically they're warning labels on the front of packages. They've eliminated cartoon characters from all the kids' food. So no more Tony the Tiger, no more the toucan on the Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
They're all gone. Right? It really works.
Wow.
I was down there, have like can of soda that had artificial sweeteners. Says this is not safe for children. Do not give it to your kids. It's like, this has got bad stuff in it. And so we're now going to be doing front of package warning labels on foods that are having bad stuff in them. Now, how the government's going to play that, the food industry is going to get involved. It's how it's all going to pan out. It's probably not going to be what I would want to do, which is like make it idiot proof. Green is good for you. Orange, eat with caution. Red, this could kill you. Like any kid could.
Yeah, but then the question is like, who's
determining that?
Who's to decide what's green, what's red?
That's the problem.
You take a room of nutrition experts, half of them are going to say that eggs are red. Grass-fed red meat, red.
Yeah. I think it's really around packaged foods, right? Like, the problem is factory-made science projects.
Yes.
And so, avocados don't have a label or an ingredient list. An egg doesn't have an ingredient list or a label, right? A piece of steak doesn't either. I mean, so we can argue all that, but around the margins, I mean, we can argue, but the whole nutrition diet wars is just nonsense. Everybody agrees on the basics.
Yeah.
We eat real food. Don't eat crap. Like, don't eat too much sugar. Like, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Eat like lots of fiber. Eat good fats. Like, I mean, there's a few people on the margin who might say don't eat fat. Most people will say that, if you're eating unprocessed meat, it's not terrible for you. There's not a lot of data to support that it is. So there is consensus, among that. Where it gets kind of tricky is like when you start getting into kind of, this ultra processed food stuff, because then the food companies are like, well, what is ultra processed food? And processing isn't bad. And it's been, I mean, and in my book, Food Fix, I wrote about this article that was in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Sounds like a great journal. I was my Bible for a long time. And it, and then they publish a lot of great studies, but I also looked at who funds them. And it's the food industry. And they had this scientific article in there that basically talked about food processing and how it's been around forever and how great it is and how wonderful it is and how it allows for the preservation of food and the scaling up of food supply and addressing hunger and starvation. And yes, we've been processing food forever. We've been making cheese, we've been making olive oil, we've been making ham, we've been making sauerkraut and yogurt, and those are all processed foods. But those are real foods, and their ingredient list is very short. And
they're not ultra processed.
Right,
foods.
They're not ultra processed. So minimally processed food, and there's different classifications. We can argue with the pros and cons of different ones. Like Nova is one that they use in Brazil, but Brazil is way ahead of the game on this, and they have really good classifications about it. If the list of ingredients is stuff that is basically deconstructed food components that are reassembled in all sizes, shapes, and colors of chemically extruded food-like substances, probably something we shouldn't eat. We have, we don't have in America the precautionary principle. They have that in Europe, right? Which is essentially you're guilty until proven innocent. Here it's you're innocent until proven guilty. So you can introduce toxins into the food supply under this framework called GRAS. And in 1958, there was a food safety law passed that really mandated the FDA to do more rigorous evaluation of products. But there was this loophole called the GRAS loophole. And it basically is like generally recognized as safe. So Crisco has been around forever. We think it's safe. And it's been around since 1911. But turns out that, no, it's killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the meantime. And we even had data 50, 60 years ago. And the only reason it was taken off the GRAS list was because there was a scientist who'd been working on this for 60 years, was 90 years old, sued the FDA to get them to deal with this in court. And then they were like, okay.
Because they were trans fats. They were
trans fats, hydrogenated fats. So, it's quite a corrupt system. I think a friend of mine once said we live in a corporate kleptocracy. It's not government for the people, by the people, of the people. It's government for the corporations, of the corporations, by the corporations. And I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I'm telling you, when you dig in, and don't take my word for it, you can go look at all the scientific citations, the literature, and it's all there in my book. And there's plenty more out there. Many other people have also done this exposés. We need to deal with it because the chronic disease crisis is bankrupting our country. It's exposing us to risks that are pretty serious. Like if we have another pandemic, why were we 4% of the population in the world and 60% of the cases and the deaths? Why? Because we were pre-inflamed when that virus hit us, and so we all got hammered. So when you're obese, when you're chronically ill, when you're old, in this country, when you're old, you're by definition chronically ill, unless you're, someone like me who's been a health nut their whole life. Like I don't have any chronic diseases, but the reality is that we're all sitting ducks, and that's why the pandemic hit us so hard. We shouldn't have been hit so hard because we have the best healthcare system. We have access to the best medicines. We had vaccines. We had whatever. Like the program against vaccine doesn't matter. We had access to everything, and nobody's talking about it. Bobby Kennedy's talking about it. I actually heard former President Trump talk about it in a speech. I mean, he was reading from a teleprompter. I don't know if he agreed with what he was saying or not, but I mean, like, it's just a non-part. And what's amazing, Max, to go into Washington, I met with Sam Cass after he left the Obama administration. He was really heading up with Michelle Obama a lot of their food initiatives, and he said, Mark, you know what? I love that you're doing this. I love this book you're doing because no one came to us from the side of reason and science saying this is actually what you should be doing. All we heard from were the food companies, right? And all we heard was not only the food companies coming and tell us what they should do and what laws we should pass, but they literally wrote the legislation for us. They create briefing books with all their science in it. They give it to us, and we just have to go, okay. And I'm like, so it's a rigged game, but I do think with grassroots efforts, things like just having me on the podcast to talk about this, raising awareness, getting people empowered with their own data, and that's why I'm so excited about Function Health because you can actually, for the first time in history, not have to go through the firewall of the healthcare system to get your data. I have an Oura Ring on, and you probably have a watch or whatever. You can learn about all your biostatistics. Great, but what about what's under the skin?
Yeah,
like right now you can't get that, and it's your body, it's your blood, it's your poop, it's your urine, it's your saliva. You should be able to learn what's in there and do whatever you want with it and be guided by a new system. So that's why with Function Health it's so great. And there's and by the way, for listeners of the Genius Life podcast, there is we
have a code for them.
Code, yes, to skip the wait list because there's 100 spots. It's a wait list of 300,000 people, so you definitely want to check this out to get in. It's Genius 100.
Genius 100.
I think it's
Genius. And that puts you on the list?
That gets you not on the list. That gets you in off the wait list. That gets you in because we love you, Max. We want you in.
Thanks, Mark.
All your people in.
Yeah, and I have no.
By the way, Max is a good friend. He's the only one who calls me Marky Mark. Most are Dr. Hyman. He calls me Marky Mark. It's okay. I love it.
I'm the only one. I love that. If you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.